last one of the big ones. We'll see what happens with writing. I'm so excited I could cheer! Or I could be all mellow and low. We're almost done. I don't know if you watched all of these. I don't know if you watched any of them. I have no way of knowing. It's great. Yay. Science reasoning. Remember, the test isn't about knowing science. The test is about knowing reasoning. It's about logic. It's about common sense a lot of times, too. You may recognize that this isn't necessarily my favorite passage, because logic and common sense aren't my cup of tea. If they were, I wouldn't have such sore eyes, because I would be blinking throughout these instead of now. So, 3 types of passages on the science test. You have 3 data representation questions, just charts and graphs. You have 3 research and experiments questions, charts and graphs with a lead-in, and you have the contrasting viewpoints section. So, let me give you some pictures to demonstrate each of these. So, we have our, this is a prime example of data representation or charts and graphs. I think you can see that. I can't see it now. And then we have a excellent experiment one, which, as you notice, it also has charts and graphs. But the difference is that before each chart or graph, it has an introduction of some kind, right? Where is it? There. I'm having to work the mirror image. That's really the only difference. The same principles apply on all of them. Okay? And then, last but not least, most people's unfavorite, contrasting viewpoints. Unless you are shooting for a 31 or a 32 or above, save this for last. You can even skip it completely. On some tests, you can get 0 on this entire freaking section, the 7 questions of contrasting viewpoints, and still get a 30 on the test. Alright, there's one test I'm familiar with where you could get a 32 and still miss 7 questions. It's neat. So, along with that, you've been practicing, you've been doing this, you know what you're doing. Just make sure you know, this is true on math as well, what is the question asking? Some questions are a lot simpler than you think they are. Some questions give you more information than you need to know. Some questions will try and misdirect you a little. Along with this, I've told most of you this, there's one very important phrase you should know, and that is according to the information provided. If you see according to the information provided at the beginning of a question, like here's a great example. According to the information provided, the biggest depth for the subduction zone in a whatever is, the information provided is the stuff here. The answer is like right in there. The information provided is everything before the arguments start, before the charts start. You might see it on a data representation passage. In that case, this is the information provided. On an experiment, the same thing. Where did my experiment? Let's go. Yes, this seems really straightforward, but it's important, right? This is the information provided before study begins, before experiment begins, before graphs appear. It's the information provided. It might say according to the passage. It might say based on the whatever. Remember, that is your key to look in the top. Along with that, follow logic, okay? Stop and think about the question before you go looking to the graphs. Like on the math test, we often immediately jump straight to our calculator. We immediately jump straight to the graphs, to the charts, to find the answer. Sometimes the answer is really obvious if you stop and think about it. There's a great one in this book, one of the practice tests that talks about altitude and radiation. It's set up in an if-then format, and it gives you the if, and it gives you the then. It says, if such and such happens, then what will occur? The answer's right there. If this does this, then this will do that, and you just have to find it. Right? It's not found in any graphs. It's found right in your head. There's the other one with weights, if you remember, where we're stretching out the nickel, and we're so busy trying to find what would happen, we don't stop and think. If we're carrying a heavy thing, right? We have a normal thing, a light thing, and a heavier thing. Which one's going to pull harder? The heavy thing is. It's like, duh! But we don't stop and think, and we try and find an answer that's already found in our heads. So make sure you know what the question is. Along with that, shoot, I forgot to say this on all the other tests. Watch for italicized words, both in the passage, yes, those are important. They'll be defined right afterwards. They'll often be questioned about later. But watch for italicized or all-capped words in the questions. Things like least, things like except, things like decreasing order or increasing order. Those can change the way the whole passage shifts. Alright, I'm going to have to do another video after this one to cover the things that I forgot. Oopsies! Yes. So stuff that is tested, make sure you know what the charts and graphs are doing. Make sure you can connect the dots on a graph. Make sure you have the right column, the right row on a chart. Don't worry, especially on the data representation, the charts and graphs, the 5-question passages about reading the text. There won't be many questions there, and if they are on data reps, they will say, according to the information provided. First, on the research summary and the experiments, remember that most of the questions are still going to be about the charts and graphs. They're not that scary. A good hint that you'll need to look in the text before the experiment is if there are why questions or which questions. Why did we do it this way? Which would do that, right? Which of the following is what would happen if? Those tell you you're going to be looking at procedure. Along with those, sometimes the answers are really easy. There's another one in this where we have 2 experiments discussing water. One experiment has only hydrogen and oxygen. One of the experiments has copper oxide and calcium carbonate, as well as hydrogen and oxygen. 2 of the questions about experiment 1, the one that only has hydrogen and oxygen. 2 of the answer choices are about copper oxide and calcium carbonate, which aren't in experiment 1. Those are quick and easy eliminations. Use process of elimination, okay? That will help you tons on these 2 types of passages. And last, contrasting viewpoints is last, and it's terrible, and it's actually my favorite one of the sections, and it's nothing to be afraid of. Remember that they're giving you a basic chunk of information, right? Basic information, maybe a diagram, and then it is hypothesis, hypothesis, support, support. The first sentence is always their hypothesis. Okay? Just scan this. Don't want to spend a lot of time reading it, but move on to this. Oftentimes there will be 6 questions or 5 questions about one scientist, and maybe only 1 or 2 questions about the second one. So don't stress your time reading all of it, unless you have to. And make sure you're looking in the right place. Okay? Be aware that sometimes there's both questions, sometimes there's neither questions. Make sure you know where the scientists, or the researchers, or the students, or the whatever, that you know where they agree and where they disagree. Okay? And just like on reading, annotate, annotate, annotate. Mark it up. I tell people with relationships, draw arrows, right? As this goes up, this goes up. As this goes down, this goes down. As this goes up, this goes down. Make sure you know which way things go, so that on those questions, as one increases, the other, it increases. And one decreases, whichever, I'm not sure. One increases and then decreases. One decreases and then increases. Whatever. Make sure you know how it works. And sometimes on charts, sometimes you'll just have the table. Order them, right? 25 is first, 23 is second. It could be here, it could be there, it could be down there. Make sure you know the order they're in terms of magnitude and size. And last but not least, have confidence. Alright, this is the last test if you're not doing writing. A lot of folks are just worn out by now. You've been pacing yourself. You've been doing the things you know to do. You've got this. Don't freak out.